also get data from US. Uh, so it's a combination of data and also combination of machines, technology to process that data as well. So we have created learning centers. Now those learning centers are open to all sorts of public. Doesn't matter if you're studying architecture, if you're studying medicine, if you're studying engineering or business. Now it's your responsibility or your prerogative to use those technology and data sets to create use cases for your own learning purposes. So given that we are in the business school, what we are trying to do is we are trying to develop use cases like, uh, let's say, a retail supermarket analysis using a virtual headset, wherein we give the headset to the students and let them walk through this retail alley and see what choices they make. So that's third thing we are doing, and the last thing that we are doing, and I think for me that is the most important point, is the collaboration with the industry. So the collaboration with the industry cannot be limited to a seminar of 45 minutes per trimester. It has to be a parallel thing. It has to be a joint collaboration, and and it does not have to be only in the university. I can recount a nice experience that our student had in the office of Microsoft Mexico, wherein the CEO of Microsoft Mexico invited the students to give an immersive experience in their building and give a master class. So these are the kind of experiences which we are investing in. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhishek. Thank you for all these experience or examples and use cases. And so now that leads us to the next question. So as you contemplate these EdTech solutions, what inspires you most and what concerns do you have about the use of technology in education? And I wonder, Isabel, if we can start with you, if you could talk about what inspires and concerns you, including the role of evidence and what that plays in the development and implementation of EdTech solutions.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. What inspires me the most is a promise that technology holds for greater access. So, for example, Sesame just released some amazing results on their WhatsApp curriculum in early childhood that shows that refugee children at the border of Syria and Lebanon now have access to those tools that where they can gain the equivalent of 1 year of in-person preschool. So these types of innovations and use of technology for kids who may not have had any form of education or very poor quality education are really, really exciting. On the concerns, I have two main ones. The one that you mentioned, which is research and evidence. So right now in EdTech, only 7% of EdTech tools have any form of rigorous evidence. And 11% only of education decision makers in school environments, and that's a US number, the latter is a US stat, but are purchasing EdTech tools based on any form of research or evidence. So I'm not saying that those who do not have evidence are not working, but we don't really know. And there is a big gap out there in terms of quality of EdTech. The other big concern that I have, which is more related to what's happening in AI at the moment, Elise, is I feel like we were for a long time speaking about the digital divide in terms of access to technology. So whether it's a device or access to broadband, and that still remains, but in many parts of the world, we are solving that digital divide gap in some beautiful ways. I feel like we have a major over digital divide that's emerging with AI, which is a concern about who is teaching. Right now, there's this emergence of and a big promise of digital tutors. But here is my concern is that are we reverting back to, now several centuries ago where wealthy families had access to a human tutor in their home one-on-one for their child. And then, other less privileged families then have access to this digital tutor. I'm a little concerned about this the risk of a new divide emerging, in terms of who is teaching our kids.
I appreciate that so much. It's a very important point, and especially also when we think about how practices get changed when we offer these new tools in classrooms with very little support with regard to the educators. Winston, what inspires you and concerns you?
Okay, my inspiration, I think, is best illustrated in these three candidate tools. One is that AI, and we're wrestling with how we can start work on that, has the ability to monitor individual progress of a student. You know, our typical classes have 50 pupils, and you know, the teacher is not even able to start copying. And yet, if you want individual attention to the student, there are systems that are being tutored now that can place cameras and monitor the student's expression, you know, whether the student is struggling or is satiated expression on their face, whether they're at this point, they've cracked this particular point and the lesson can move to the next level. That for me would be a very high level achievement. There is one that we are currently working on and we are really inspired, voice vernacular, translator from vernacular to English and from English to vernacular. We believe that that would be a very powerful tool for the African child in early primary, because then they would learn the language faster, knowing what this means in vernacular and in English. Another is a very powerful tool too, is voice to text and text to voice. So that implies that any people, especially the people living with sight disability, then would have access to you know, reading material. They would also be able to type, because all they need to do is speak, and it will be converted into words, and they would be able to read text straight away into voice. I think that would be quite powerful. One thing that I've left for last is a virtual engineering lab. We know that we may be one of the very first people to try this out using Internet of Things, sensor networks, and actuators to be able to transfer the engineering lab, like an automation lab or a mechanical lab, right? And I would be able to do procedures right from my PC at home. So because I can pick data from any part of the plant, and then I can determine what control modes that are supposed to exercise on the plant. And then I can now use sensor still to be able to monitor how responsive the automatic plant is, or the automation of the plant is, and know whether some of the modes or controller principle settings that are picked work. It's actually would be a very trailblazing concept. But my concerns are two. One is whether some of these systems really work, the effectiveness. We really need to do a lot of monitoring and evaluation. And then the last one is accessibility. Some of these technologies need devices. In the rural, are they able to the costs are too high, are able to afford the devices? Are they able to afford the networks? Are they able to afford the language barriers, and etc.? Then that really makes the divide even wider between, say, schools in the urban, those in the rural.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's really important and valuable to have these global, very different perspectives, and yet also similar themes that come across. Abhishek, I'm sorry that we have run out of time. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to tell us, and then what we're going to do is drop the other questions into the chat as we move to our next speaker. So Abhishek, what concerns you or inspires?
So just about the inspiration part, you know, I think the global connectivity, the fact that we're sitting together from 15 different countries and 4 different time zones, I think this is what inspires me the most personally. But as far as concerns are, the main concerns are there, you know, Isabel and Winston have rightly pointed out. It's mainly the difference in the resources and access to the technology. But for me, the biggest concern apart from that in general is the over dependence of technology. The issue could be that technology should not diminish our critical thinking, but it should actually enhance it. And that's where I have the biggest concern, because what has happened is that because of all this splurge in the AI tools, we have started to outsource our thinking to the tools. The moment we outsource our thinking, that's where we will start becoming obsolete, because the tools are enabled to help us not to think for us. The moment they start doing us, what's the point of why the tool would require a human input, because of the tool itself has started to think. So for me, that is the biggest concern, which may apply to every person regardless of where they are. So that will be my points. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. We'll add some more questions into the chat as we move into our next speaker, who we're very excited to introduce.